Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I have kind of a discussion video, maybe a little bit more informational. I don't do those kinds of videos very often on my channel, but I'm really in the mood to film today and I don't really have any new book content to talk about, so I thought that I would get something, off my mind, or at least alleviate a stress that I've had lately. Over the last couple of months on BookTube, I've made some references to some self-published books that I've read, and they were not great experiences. And I started thinking about that, and I really started to have this concern that I was somehow contributing to the stigma or the negative reputation that self-publishing sometimes has. And I want to clarify that if that's the case. I want to rectify that if I've somehow done that. The fact of the matter is, I'm a big fan of self-publishing. My favorite author is a self-published author. As a writer myself, I don't intend to pursue traditional publishing. I kind of want to tell you guys the reasons for that. I kind of want to tell you my perspective on self-publishing as a reader, not a writer. I don't talk about my writing on this BookTube channel. That's a conscious decision. Besides, there's not a lot happening with my writing right now, so there wouldn't be very much to talk about. So I just want to stick to a reader's perspective on self-publishing and self-published books. Now, there's a couple of things that make it easier to read self-published books. That if you're not interested in these things, then you're going to have a harder time encountering or supporting self-published work. The first is where you shop. If you are 100% a bookstore shopper, you like the experience of going into a bookstore and picking things up off the shelf, be them new books or used books, you're going to have a more difficult time encountering self-published work. The second is the book format that you prefer. Self-publishing has come a long way, and now it is possible to have easy access to paperbacks that have been self-published. But if you're somebody who prefers hardcover books, you're going to have a harder time encountering self-published work. Thanks to CreateSpace, which is the Amazon platform for self-publishers, you can publish via ebook or paperback, no big deal. But you have to, as a self-published writer, you have to take further steps if you want to see your book in hardcover. There's even more self-published work in ebook format than there is in ebook and paperback format. If you never pick up a Kindle or your mobile device in order to read an ebook, again, you're going to have a more difficult time. Also, even if you're not dedicated to going into a bookstore and picking a book up off the shelf, if you even like online shopping, where you online shop is going to affect what books you have access to. For instance, if you are 100% a Book Outlet fan, that's great because Book Outlet has amazing prices on great books. However, you're not going to find self-published books very often on Book Outlet. Most of those are going to be traditionally published books. So now that you know whether or not you're even exposing yourself to self-published books, I want to talk about the pros and cons of reading self-published books. For me, the pros certainly outweigh the cons. For other people, that might not be the case. And here's the deal. So traditionally published work is extremely vetted. I mean, it is difficult to get into traditional publishing as a writer. It's kind of like acting, right? Or professional sports. Only the best of the best are getting in there. You're only seeing the best of the best actors on television or in film. So the flip side of that is that self-published books are not vetted at all. There's nobody who's going through your book and saying, yes, you can publish this, or no, you cannot. You could write absolutely anything and have it self-published. You can have it in ebook format. You can have it in paperback format very, very easily. So a con for a lot of people is that in order to read self-published books, you're taking a risk, right? On one hand, you have traditional publishing, which is very low risk because it already contains the best of the best writers out there. On the other hand, you have self-published books, which is a very high risk. And the difference between the two is, in my opinion, in traditional publishing, it's not going to be difficult for you to find a well-written book. When you shop traditionally published books, what you're actually looking for is something that appeals to your particular tastes. Yes, you may not like the events in the story, you may not like the characters or something about the plot line, but chances are the writing, it's going to have merit. On the other hand, with self-published books, it's not hard at all to find something that fits your particular taste, because I promise you, it exists. The difference is, once you've found something that fits your particular taste, you have to find a well-written book that you enjoy. I personally, I'm not going to say that I have a preference for self-published books, but I am going to say that I am very willing to read self-published books all the time. I love shopping at Amazon. I love reading in electronic format. So there's nothing holding me back from being exposed to the material. Now, obviously, you're still spending money on self-published books. So for a lot of people, the money is a drawback. You're spending money on something that you're not sure is written well. Self-published books, though, do tend to be cheaper than traditionally published books. Traditionally published books are released in ebook format, usually around $6.99, $7.99 at the bottom end of the price scale. Self-published books are released in ebook format, 99 cents to $3.99 at the low end of the scale. But ultimately, here is why I chase and pursue finding a really good self-published book. I'm a little bit rebellious. I'm a little bit non-traditional. I'm a little bit of a rule breaker myself. I challenge social norms. I challenge stereotypes. I challenge traditional obligations as often as I can in every avenue of my life. I don't live my life by a strict set of rules. Here's how I view traditional publishing. When you consider all of the people in this world, and then you consider all of the people in traditional publishing, you're talking about just a handful of people who are pretty much deciding what the rest of us get to read. And what do traditional publishers look for? They look for things that will make them the most money. And what will make them the most money? Books with mass appeal. Books that are good, but that will appeal to the most amount of people. And I've found that a lot of times that leads to a very bland, repetitive experience. A lot of times money making is making the decisions inside of traditional publishing. I'm also uncomfortable with the thought that there could be so much more out there that I'm not getting to see. Before self-publishing was a thing, we really were only reading what this handful of people decided that we should read. For every book that gets published, there's probably 1,000 books that get rejected. Well, what I want to know is what's in those books. And thanks to self-publishing, I can find out. This is most evident in the romance genre. Now, whether you're a fan or not a fan, bear with me. This is just an illustration. When you look at traditionally published romance novels, they are the reason that romance as a genre has such a bad name. I remember reading traditionally published romance novels, and it got to the point where I could tell you that the first sex scene was going to occur between page 90 and 110 in every single book. I mean, there's just a very specific formula to traditionally published romance. I am not impressed. I am not impressed by traditionally published romance novels. Some of them, yeah. Others, no. Do I like grittier books? Yeah, I do. I gravitate towards grittier books. And traditionally published romance is just very bland for me. And why is that? Well, because it's a genre where it would be very easy to be deeply offensive, right? Right. I think that traditional publishers tend to toe the line where romance is concerned, because it's not like horror. You don't go into it knowing that it's going to be a bloodbath and that there's going to be things that are objectionable and things that are shocking and upsetting. Romance could be very sweet, or it could be very, very dark. And unfortunately, if somebody expecting a sweet romance picks up something that would make a prostitute blush, then that, congratulations, that traditional publisher has completely offended someone and lost a reader. So I guess on one hand, I can understand why romance as a traditionally published genre is boring and bland and formulaic and repetitive and not groundbreaking in the least, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. When it comes to self-published work, romance is the most saturated of the genres with self-published authors. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. Some of those reasons I support and some of those reasons I don't. It is a moneymaker. There are a lot of people out there just looking to make money, and if so, they're told to go ahead and write a romance or erotica novel and self-publish it, and boom, you're making money. And it really is sometimes that simple. Where in the hell was I going with this? In your self-published romance novels, you're going to get that grit. You're going to get things that some people might not like. You're going to see books sold with very obvious and not at all confusing warnings about who should be reading this book and who should not. Things that you don't get when you're standing in the bookstore. There's no sign on the shelf that says, warning, this is explicit. But in any genre of self-published novel, what I'm finding is that authors are pushing boundaries, breaking rules. I mean, there's so many different things that people do in a book that, quite frankly, traditional publishing doesn't expose us to because it's not seen as having merit, or it's not seen as having mass appeal. And that's unfortunate to me. And it kind of ticks me off a little bit. You know, I want to read things that are different. I am constantly looking for something new and different and better. I like the experience that I get from seeing or encountering something for the very first time. I'm not the kind of person that goes on vacation to the same place every year. I used to think that I was, but then I became an adult. And I started experiencing more in the world. And what I found is that the most enjoyable feeling to me is seeing and experiencing something for the first time. And I get that from self-publishing, and I don't often get that with traditional publishing. Do I think we should all stop reading traditionally published work? No, I don't, because like I said, it's guaranteed to have some merit. It's been through the process. There have been several eyes on that material before it was ever printed on a piece of paper and put bound between two covers. You know that it at least passed some marks and some expectations of a group of people. And it's important sometimes to expose yourself to things that you know are quality, to things that an entire group says is quality. Adding to the risk of finding a good book that's been self-published is the dirty business of buying reviews. But there are actually companies out there that if you've put an item or a book on Amazon, you can pay that company X amount of money to give you X amount of positive reviews, to generate activity on your item that's positive and that's encouraging to other people to purchase it. That's dirty business. I absolutely agree. It sucks that that exists. I don't often care about the reviews. I can't even say that before I purchase something, I read very many reviews. I will say that the self-published book that I hated the absolute most, I bought based on the reviews. And so I learned my lesson, and that won't be happening again. I've already mentioned how 2018 will be a year for me of trying to reduce my unread physical and ebook inventory. And because of that, I'm probably going to be reading a lot of self-published work in 2018, especially when it comes to my ebook inventory. My feelings on this may change. I may be able to change some of your minds throughout the next year as you hear me talking about these things. But for now, just know that while it does take a little bit of extra work to find things that you enjoy amongst the self-published pool of books, it's not impossible, and I think it's a really worthwhile effort. I think that not only could you experience something new or find and discover something that you'd never even thought of before, or things you'd never even heard of before, or like I did, your favorite author could be the product of your adventures through the self-publishing pool of work. But reading self-published work supports authors that may or may not have had any luck in traditional publishing, or they may or may not have even sought out traditional publishing. Some people, they just want to create. I want my consumption of self-published work and my platform here on BookTube or on my blog to have some sort of effect on maybe the books that are published traditionally in the future. We do have that power. We do have that voice, right? If we find something that we love that's self-published and we talk about it enough and enough people buy it and enough people spread the word, then it could be something that traditional publishers take notice of. It could change the face of these handful of books that people are saying we'll like. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew how I felt. No, I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't made it sound like self-publishing was less worth my time or more frustrating for me than anything else, or that I wasn't going to do it anymore. I mean, all of that stuff is absolutely untrue. I'm interested to know how everybody else feels about self-publishing from the reader's perspective, not the writer's perspective. Do you seek out self-published work? Are you hesitant to seek out self-published work? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on those things down below. If you know of a self-published author that you think that I would really enjoy, please by all means leave those suggestions and recommendations for me too. And if you're interested on how you can expose yourself to some quality self-published authors, I can try to help you with that. But thank you so much for watching, you guys, watching me ramble. I will see you all very soon.